Hey, so welcome to this tutorial on SwiftCut. So what we're going to do is just navigate to where you've downloaded the file, drag and drop the script in here, and then you'll get a dockable menu called Max SwiftCut. All you're going to do is dock that to one side, and I'll take you through each of the stages now. So the first section up at the top, you've got create mesh. So this will create a mesh at the world center point. So if we can create any of these meshes for cutting. So once we've done that, you'll see you'll get a box 1 in here, which is referencing this box. Over on the right hand side, this is your standard modifier panel. You can see when the object is created, it puts on in a non-destructive way an edit polar and a Boolean. So it gives you the option really to tweak and change the size and scale of this, or even add in some customization before moving on to the Boolean operation, like so. All the functions in here should have a backspace, so they should be able to use Control-Z to go back. At the moment, it's set up for DirectX. So if you go into DirectX mode, you'll get the coloration. But if you want your own material, just put a PBR on or whatever it is you want to edit in. So for me, it was DirectX when I set this up. In addition to that, we've got the canvas offsets. The canvas tool itself, what we can do is we can bring in a canvas at the camera's point of view. Okay, so what this allows you to do is if you've got a certain cut or bit of detail that you want, you can come into the line tool, grab this auto grid, and you're free to sort of draw your shape on here. So it's quite nice, and then you can extrude out and you can use that as a cut. So what you would do is you would select the cut itself, so you can see that's on an angle. So you've got to delete the canvas. That'll be on an angle, and you can set it as the cut, and then edit this. We'll get into cuts now. In addition to this, the big one that you've got is the cut tools. So the actual cut tools itself, there's a few different options. So you've got the surface sort of spline alignment. So if we've got a surface we want to spawn one of these onto, we click this little checkbox, and it should snap any of these to the surface area, which we'll demonstrate in a moment. Via default, so the default one will spawn at the camera's position. So for example, if I wanted to spawn a rect, I would do that, and it will spawn at the camera's position. It'll default to a select and place, so it gives you the option then to select and place this object how you want it. Keep in mind, if your camera is on an angle, you can see there it will angle them. So if you're sort of this way and you snap it on, it's going to angle that. All right. Easy way to get around it is use your view cube. Click there, and you can see you get a straight one. You can also spawn these in orthographic view as well. So if we come in here, we can use rect there. Let's just go into perspective. You put it on the other side like that, and then you're free to sort of drag and move this about or do whatever you want. Now the cutters, each of the cutting objects are also editable as well. They come in as a rect, so these ones are splines predominantly. They come in as what shape they are, and then there's an extrusion modifier to give you more customization and work in a non-destructive flow. You can collapse these down. So before we get into cutting, you can right click, convert to editable poly to save on the data and stuff, dependable on your PC, your system setup. And if we did want to cut, what we have to ensure is that there is a current mesh picked, so it has to be a target mesh from here, and there is also a cutting tool picked as well. So you can see I've got my current cutter. So what happens now is when I click a Boolean operation like subtract, it's going to take this away from this box. So it just saves us from going into the stack, selecting different objects and things. So I can click subtract, and there we go, it subtracts from here. You can have multiple objects and switch between them as well. So if we've got 2 cubes, or perhaps we've got two sections that we want to edit on the same mesh, what we can do is we can change which option we want. Now by default, it'll select the newly created object. So in here, if we click here, you can see it'll default to object 3. Okay, so let's just put 3 there. And then you've got object 2. So now I've got to click that, and I've also got to click that one. So if we want object 2 and I click that, that is now going to become the mesh that is going to be Booleaned. Okay, so what we do is I'll just do another rect at position. It doesn't necessarily matter where it is. And then if we click subtract, that'll subtract from there, and then it'll be the same thing from here as well. So we can click this. Let's just do one more for good measure. So we can do a rect, grab that, subtract there. So there we go. So you've got to constantly change between them. You can't just select and it updates. Okay, so you have to change and identify the mesh. There's all the Boolean operations that you'll find in a standard bool there. So you've got them there, and you've also got access to them there. The reason you're probably going to want to do that is because, for example, you might very well have, you know, two options to cut here. Now the current tool in its format, it only takes one cutter object at a time. That's just the way it's designed, because it's designed for customization. So the idea is you're going to be customizing these to make them a bit more bespoke. But if you do have objects, large scale objects, you can select in here. We can select subtract, and we can subtract these operations. Now we can still go back into our option here, make sure we've picked the cutter so it's up to date, and we can still subtract that way as well. So you've got different options in terms of how you can subtract this. It does work with a modifying stack as well. One of my latest videos I've been showing or demonstrating having chamfer modifiers, you know, symmetry modifiers and things like that. So for example, if we only want to edit one side of the mesh, we should be able to add a symmetry modifier in here. Let's do along the y-axis. So we've got that in there, so it should be this side, I believe. Let's grab this, and then again, just make sure you've got that current cutter picked. We've not got box 2 selected, you can see there, so I need to select box 2. I'll go back to my cutter, and then I can click subtract, and it's applied to the other side. So you can stack these. It does get a bit temperamental at times, so this is the first iteration of it, so you know, at times it could crash and stuff. Just be a bit patient as we, you know, I try and work out the errors and stuff. In addition to that, we've also got the surface alignment tool. So this is pretty handy because we can click this, and it doesn't matter where you are in the scene. If we select this now, I'll just reset that there. So if we select this, it will snap to the current mesh's surface. So I'm just going to show you a better demonstration here. Let's in actual fact, I'll create a new box. Let's create a new cube, and what we're going to do is use the edit poly to make a change in here. So we should be able to select this, grab our edge. Okay, so just remember it defaults to select and place mode, so you're just going to grab the edge. Then what we can do is we'll do a chamfer on that edge. I'm just going to take away that. And now we've got surface alignment. So what I should be able to do now is, if I just zoom out, click my spline object, and it should align to that surface. So it's just a better way, a quicker way to get these snapped to a surface if you need to do a very quick edit. You can still use the move tool, so you can still use this, but you know, if you're in a scene and you've got lots of objects and you're trying to move quickly to build a design, that's the idea behind it. And again, you can subtract that, and it should be on the same angle as this face here. Okay, so in addition to that, there are a few meshes as well. So we've got a couple of meshes that spawn at world center. So for example, here we've got a 45-degree cut, which is essentially just a chamfer applied. It's a quad chamfer applied to a cube. And what you can do is, you know, we can sort of scale this up as much as we want. So we can grab that there, we can sort of bring this over here. We can also scale via the scale here, but it's not advisable for you to you know, change the length and width once you start scaling this way, because you throw the transforms off, and you'd have to go into, you know, using X forms and things like that. So it depends on your knowledge and how knowledgeable you are of 3ds Max. So here we've got this, make sure we've got the cutter selected, and what we can do is subtract. And there you go, you've got that bit of detail in there. And I think that is about it. Now remember, this is the first version, so as of this video, this is the first version out of it. You know, expect a few bugs and stuff, but that's the way it works. You've got to constantly have a current mesh and a cutter selected for it to work, otherwise it might kick up errors. Most of the time, if we didn't have a cutter, so say if we try to change this and it's non-valid selection, it should tell you that. So if we do try and come in here, it'll tell you to select cutter as well. So there are things in place to prevent it from crashing, but you've got to keep in mind, you know, it's the first sort of version. As always, we've got our social media links, so digitalsteve.com. You know, give us a like, follow, subscribe. So you got the YouTube. So hopefully that's where we're trying to push growth at the moment. So give us a subscribe there, and you should be able to get the tool from the website. Any questions, drop me a message. It's always good to hear from you. Let me know how you get on, and I'd love to see the work you're producing with this tool set. Bye bye for now.